Now what will it be? Death or exile?
Welcome everybody to the Film Exiles podcast. Today we have the honour and privilege to have with us a very special guest. We're going to shine a spotlight on her incredible Hollywood career so far. We're going to do a little digging into what she might have coming up ahead, and we're basically going to try and get to know her a little better. Ladies and gentlemen, Danielle Burgio.
Hello.
Hey, Danielle.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. This is fun. I'm already having fun. We haven't even started yet.
That's true. And of course, I won't be interviewing you alone, Danielle, because the moment one of my fellow film exiles found out that we would be interviewing someone who worked on Matrix movies, it was decided for me that he would be joining us. I am, of course, joined by my regular partner in crime, Lupe.
Hello, Lupe.
Hey, guys. Hi, Danny. It's very nice to meet you. Trust me, on my end, it's an honor. Okay, this is exciting for me.
It's an honor for me as well. So thank you for having me.
Definitely. And Lupe, I think you want to kick off this with some very important questions for our times.
Yes. The most important question to start off, okay, is does pineapple belong on pizza? First, let's start right there.
Absolutely not. No, it's a hard no.
Oh God! I'm heartbroken.
I'm a traditional pizza lover over here.
Thank you.
Although I will say I do like some pineapple, so I'm not opposed to having a pizza and then having some pineapple for dessert.
See, that's how humans eat, Lupe. This is how we're supposed to eat.
But to each his own, you know. It takes all kinds, and if we're going to share a pizza, we can put pineapple on your half, and I just won't touch it. That's okay.
Okay, nice. See, I like that. You know, everyone we ask the question, you know, is a hardliner. I like that, you know, you accounted for a bit of diplomacy. I like it. Good start. Good start. So, Danielle, how are you holding up during quarantine? You know, this is a very strange time for everyone. How are you, your family, your loved one doing in this difficult period?
Oh, thank you for asking about my family. They're all doing well. They're in North Carolina, and they're all together. So they have each other, and they're an essential business. So they're still working and haven't, you know, I mean, obviously things have changed big time for a lot of people. For me personally, I think because, you know, when you're in the entertainment industry, you kind of become a professional at being unemployed and having long bouts of time where you're not working or you're home, or I'm always having to find ways to be creative and be productive in between some of the movies that I'm doing. So aside from the fact that I really miss my friends and I really miss being able to go out for a good meal and a glass of wine and see somebody face to face, it's kind of not that different for me on a day-to-day, although the impact of what's happening in the world is so huge. And I'm a very spiritually minded person. So I've really been taking this time to do a lot of self-reflecting, and so many silver linings have come for me. Like, it's kind of astounding, the silver linings that I'm able to see in my life, and that not at all to take away from the horrors that a lot of people are facing, the, you know, people who can't pay their bills and people who have loved ones who have passed, the medical workers and everything they're doing and going through. I support them. I do what I can to raise awareness or donate funds, or I've gone to donate blood a couple of times. Those things are all real. However, on the flip side of things, you know, I really see people slowing down, becoming more self-introspective, connecting with family and friends. And I've had so many conversations with people that as we move forward out of this, the things that they want to take into this new world. And for me
Absolutely.
too, I've really
Absolutely.
redefined a lot of what's important to me. I think coming out of this, I'm going to move a lot slower. I'm going to cook at home a lot more.
Hmm.
I'm going to cherish my time with my loved ones in a different way.
Mm,
Yeah, so all of it,
sure.
it's a lot. It's a lot. This is huge. I mean, we've never seen anything like this in our lifetime, and in a way, I
Mhm.
feel blessed
So
to be a part of it.
you have enough tissue paper and hand sanitizer. That's you got that out of the way, right?
I
I mean,
was so lucky that somebody tipped me off early about the toilet paper scarcity. And a friend of mine said, I've been to 3 stores and I can't find any. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And the next day I was at the grocery store and there was like the shelves were full of them at that time. This is before lockdown. And so I grabbed, just one big roll. And then I started rationing. Like, I'm like, okay, how many squares how many squares can I get away with? So I've been rationing, and I still have like a roll and a half left from that, which I bought like in early
Oh
March.
my god, that's hilarious.
So I'm good. At
that's
least for
brilliant.
another week or so.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Danielle, you mentioned that you're from North Carolina initially, and you're now in LA. But your name, Burgio,
Yeah.
doesn't really sound well. What is an American name really? What is your family background?
Well, I actually grew up originally in New York.
Okay.
And so I started in Astoria before we moved to North Carolina when I was 11. So New York's really kind of my roots. But my father, Burgio, we're 3 generations here in the US, but his ancestors are from Sicily. And there is a little town.
Ah.
And of course, if you're Italian, you say Borgio. So there's a little town called Borgio in Sicily that my ancestors are from on my father's side. And then my mom is Polish Romanian. Her father was from Romania, and her mother, my grandmother, who is the love of my life, was
Mhm.
from Poland. So
Ah,
I'm a mutt.
you're a European like me, Lupe. You have a mixed background as well. I have a mixed background. I'm from all over the place, really. Like, it's a running joke within the film Exiles. Like, what continent are you from today? I've got a bit of everything.
I guess
So,
we
But
all
that's
are at
that's
this
what
point,
yeah, that's what the world is now. It's the United Nations. Everyone is from all over the place, from Europe, from Africa. You have people from South America, and yeah, it's beautiful. I love that.
definitely, we are a cosmopolitan group. So, when did you move from New York?
So I was in the middle of the 5th grade. I was about 11 years old, and let me just say to any parents out there listening, it is really mean to make your child move in the middle of the 5th grade.
But then you worked on Broadway, right? So what was it like going back to New
Right.
York for that kind of thing?
My parents, right. So we moved to North Carolina, and then I was like, as soon as I'm old enough, I am going to run back to New York because I'm a New Yorker. And that's what I did, like straight out of school. When we moved to North Carolina, my mom put me in a dance class in hopes that I would, make more friends and, just have an opportunity to start, getting my feet wet in a new community. And I really took to that. Like, dancing became something that was such a big part of my life, and also connected me sort of to the performing world, right? Doing musical theater and acting and all that. And I fell in love with it. So as soon as I was old enough, right out of school, I said, right, I'm going back to New York. I'm going to be on Broadway. And my parents were like, okay, well, how long are you going to give it? If it doesn't happen, of course they always believed in me, but as parents do, they thought, well, maybe she'll be a dance teacher, or maybe she'll be this. Like, I don't think any parent really wants their child to go and pursue an acting career or a career on Broadway or anything like that, because they
It's
know
very
how
risky, isn't it?
very risky, and you're facing so much rejection, and it's a tough thing. But I was determined, and they supported me, which was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got very lucky. Actually, it was my very first audition. It was for Starlight Express, which was an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical that was at the Gershwin Theater. It was playing already for a year. And I was very young, and I go to this audition, and it was a long process, but the long and the short of it is I got the role. So first audition, and I'm on Broadway for my first year in New York. And that kind of was what set me on my path.
Oh, that's amazing. I have a follow-up question. You talk about how the career of an actress, you have lulls of not having work, and then, you deal with rejection. I mean, you are a very successful performer, actress, filmmaker. How have you navigated those waters mentally? How do you do it? What advice would you give to young people, either venturing into your field or just in any field in life where they may face rejection and face difficult times? What advice do you have for people?
Yeah, that's hard because, you can give all the advice in the world, but at the end of the day, it's just the mileage. And over time, you develop a thicker and a thicker and a thicker skin. So people can tell you like, hey, don't take things personally. I had an old coach that used to say, you want to have the skin of a rhinoceros, but the heart of a baby, right? To make it in this business. And that's really true. So I guess my advice would be to just stick with it and to know that everybody feels that pain. That's a part of the process of being an artist, is going through that pain, but also to just be very diligent in your work and your craft and just keep working at it. And because you can always grow and always be better and always be stronger, and just to know that that's a process. And there'll be wins along the way. You'll have one win, and then you'll have 20 non-wins. You'll have a lot of tears. And then, when something clicks, for me personally, and for a lot of artists that I know, like when that clicks, the feeling is so fulfilling and so amazing that it will help you sustain all the rejection and all the ones that you didn't get. And over time you learn it's not really, part of it is obviously your talent, but it's just so many things that have to line up in order for you to get that role or that position or that stunt doubling job or that, whatever it is. There's a lot of elements that have to line up, and it's not really always about you or your talent. You have to bring that, but you also have to respect the business and know that there's just other elements. And so also studying the business, studying other aspects of whatever area you're in, if it's film, then filmmaking, so that you can kind of better understand the bigger picture and kind of get the ego out of it as much as possible.
Well, you briefly touched on your stunt work there. How did your dancing career and your career on Broadway, how did that prepare you for stunt work?
Well, funny enough, when I did Starlight Express, I had absolutely no inkling that I would ever become a stunt woman. But that show was all on roller skates, and we had like these bridges and tunnels and these big drops and stuff. So I think that was like maybe a little bit of foreshadowing into the stunt world. But as a dancer, everything is physical movement, right? And it's a lot of choreography. It's just physical sensibility, which is exactly what stunts are as well. And there's a lot of stunt coordinators that love working with dancers for that reason. At the same time, there are some habits that I formed as a dancer that made it more difficult for me when I started doing, especially like martial arts, because I was so used to pointing my toes and creating beautiful lines with my arms, and they were like, no, you just got blew up by a fireball, so you don't look like
I almost get visions of you being next to an explosion and you diving out like you're from Swan Lake or something.
Exactly. You don't want to do that. So there were some challenges with that, but in terms of like choreography and just the body mechanics, so one of my very, very first stunt jobs, I got to do an ARAM. And that's actually very rare. Like usually you'll be in the stunt business for a while and have to work your way up before you get to do something like that.
Yeah.
It was a matter of just very quickly learning how to do it. And so Jeff Imada was the stunt coordinator, and he puts me on it. He explains it to me. He demonstrates it. And then I do it. And I do it the first time. And he says, okay, the next time you need to pitch a little bit more forward. You need to get this part of your body more in this position. And as a dancer, I just understood that because I had the really good body awareness. So that's just an example of how
and what stunt was that? Could you describe what stunt that is to us?
Yeah, okay. Well, this was on one of my first movies, John Carpenter's Vampires. I'm a vampire hiding in behind a closet door as the team is coming through looking, and when James Woods opens the door, I come leaping out, and it basically, an Arium is a high pressure situation under your feet that catapults you through the air. So it catapulted me through the air. So I'm basically fly through the air and had to land on this other stunt guy's back. And then the fight ensues. And it's like, don't hit your head on the beam. Don't take out the other actor. Don't take out the cameraman who's standing right there. Nice. So all of the fun elements.
What is the most dangerous stunt you've ever performed?
The most dangerous? Oh, let's see. I guess, well, I did, one of the ones that I was really proud of was I was doing it was a TV series where the character had to jump from one building to another building. And the trick was that she actually had to miss the second building, like catch her foot on the ledge of the building and then grab on with her arms. And I did have a safety wire on, obviously, because they couldn't afford the possibility that I would plummet to my death. However, it was just to catch me in case of a fatal accident. It's not like it wasn't helping me, assisting me or anything like that. So I had to make.
You could still hit your face, for example, on the ledge of the other building. Absolutely.
And if you miss something like that and do just kind of plummet, that it could be, it could hurt. It can hurt. So there's that. I don't know if that was the most dangerous, but for me, that was really got my heart rate up pretty heavily.
Tom Cruise, he broke his leg on Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
On a stunt that kind of reminds me a little bit of something like that. He was jumping from a building to another, and I think he used his foot to stop himself while grabbing the other ledge, and his foot just broke. So
right. Yes.
And it's this kind of stuff which really grinds my gears with respect to the Academy. I've got really strong opinions on this. I was actually wondering what your perspective is, being a stunt performer yourself, about the lack of Academy acknowledgement for the work of stunt performers and stunt crews.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a sore spot. And I think what people don't realize is, I think a lot of the general public feels like what we're fighting for, and there is quite a fight that's going on, and it's been going on for a number of years. And the Academy has just been refusing to acknowledge. It's not just the stunt performers. And yes, the stunt performers add a lot and they deserve their credit. But bigger than that, they don't have an Oscar for the stunt coordinator. And the stunt coordinator is the person who works with the director to design all of the action sequences. So it's not just performing them, it's literally designing them and oftentimes setting up shots and the camera and everything. So even that person, the head of the department, is not being recognized. And if you think about some of the films that, some of these Academy winning movies, if you took the action out of, Hacksaw Ridge, you wouldn't have a movie. I mean, and look at the Joker from this year. There was action there, Revenant, or even Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like, if you pull the action out of these movies, what do you have left? It's the only major department head, aside from casting directors, that are not acknowledged. And considering it's such a vital part of the actual storytelling and filmmaking, it is just unacceptable that they are still not recognizing.
I struggle to get to grips with the logic involved because, for example, there's Academy Awards for visual effects, for directing, obviously, for acting, for musical score, for all of these things.
Hell, they have 2 awards for sound, like sound mixing and sound editing, and great, they deserve their recognition.
Absolutely. And these are all vital parts of creating a film that if you remove them, it's not going to be as good or as prestigious as it otherwise would. I can't understand the logic of not recognizing another element of film. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, nor can I. And if anybody listening wants to join our cause, you can follow. There's a hashtag Stand Up for Stunts, and that'll lead you to. There's a petition out there, and people that we've been trying to get through the academy. So the more people that can raise their voices, that would be helpful. But I don't really understand it myself. I have heard some things about there's an old school mentality that dates way back to earlier filmmaking when the stars were getting the credit and that the stunt department was more behind the scenes. But, that was a long time ago. Things have really changed since then. So I don't know what the disconnect is. I wish I knew.
You guys, you heard it. The hashtag is Stand Up for Stunts.
Yeah.
And we all got to get behind them, and we all got to make it happen because there's simply no justification. So I have an interesting question. Okay. You're an incredible stunt performer in peak athletic shape. How do you stay in shape, and what's the regimen for a stunt person?
Yeah, I need to know the answer to this.
So do I. Follow Jessie Graff. She's the one. No, there are incredible athletes out there in that field. I personally have had one foot out the door for the last few years. Although, my whole life I've been very physical from being a dancer. And then when I started in stunts, I started training more in martial arts, gymnastics, a lot of trampoline work because that teaches you good like air awareness where your body is in the air. But now I'm shifting my ways. So I yoga, I hike. I like to mix it up, I really like to just do, I don't know, just generally be physical. Like I'm just the person who will take the stairs instead of the elevator. Or, when I'm walking my dog, I'll find myself like, doing like glute squeezes or something. I don't know. If my body is not strong, I don't feel well. Like I feel like for me, especially from many years being so physical, I have a lot of injuries that'll want to creep up on me if I don't stay strong and balanced.
Same.
So when I feel my body start to tweak, I know I need to, get back and take it a little more seriously. So it's a number of, I love Pilates. I do a lot of those kind of exercises, some bar classes. Yeah, just depends.
And how is the coronavirus crisis affecting your daily routine or your weekly routine? Your exercise and stuff, because we are currently still in lockdown in the UK. I think we're allowed out for an hour or something. So I just do a little 5K little run every day. I don't know what are you up to, Lupe?
Oh, me? I do. I do about 1,000 push-ups a day.
Go, Lupe, go.
I love working out. For me, it's very therapeutic. It helps me with my mental states. Also, I grew up playing basketball like ever since 6th grade. I actually played in college, and I played a little bit of football. So I'm also at that stage where, like Danielle, when you talked about old injuries creeping up on you, when you start feeling your knee tighten a little bit, or your lower back start to creak, and then okay, like I gotta whether do some yoga or start running a little bit more, or do some squats or some knee stabilization exercises. So I'm always trying to keep fit. I have a gym membership, but since gyms are closed now, so as I said, I do like 1,000 push-ups a day, and then I alternate with about 500 curls and triceps extensions. So I just try to just keep moving and get my heart.
Wait! You're serious with the 1,000 push-up thing?
Yeah. I mean, not 1,000 in a row. So I'll do like 50, take a 60-second break, 60, take a 60-second break, 40, 50 until I get to 1,000.
Yeah, Lupe's in ridiculous shape.
Wow, no shit.
What's your routine?
I do some online classes. I have some online yoga classes that I've been doing. And then I have a friend who has a Instagram called Soulful Sweat. She's a friend of mine, and she's always putting up these awesome exercises. So sometimes I go on there and I exercise along with her. Different days. I also am a dancer. I love I love dance. So that's probably the one thing I miss the most is being able to get on the dance floor. But I've done a couple of at-home online dance classes. Not quite the same as having all those, inspiring bodies in the room with you and really being able to
Feel
make
that
use of a big
energy.
space. But I make do. I make do. So a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But just to go back to what you were saying, Lupe, yeah, when you feel the tweak, and I'm the same way, like I feel the tweak and then I go, I got to get stronger. I think a lot of people do it the other way around, right? They feel a tweak in their body and then they go, oh, I don't want to work out because I don't want to hurt myself. And for me, it's the flip side of that.
Same.
Yeah.
Exact same. Yeah. I saw a video on your Twitter of you dancing with your dog. People, you got to know, Danielle's got the moves. Okay, so let's let that be known. Okay,
Michael Jackson can make anybody move their feet.
True. That's the magic of Michael.
Yeah, I was celebrating. I just adopted a beautiful German Shepherd. I think she was saying hi a little earlier in the interview. Yeah, that's one of the silver linings that came out of my quarantine was that I ended up with a beautiful shepherd puppy.
Oh, she's beautiful. I love dogs. I'm a dog person, so I approve.
Yeah, we've got our little Jack. He's 10 years old now, so not much dancing.
Oh,
He's cute.
So Danielle, in case you didn't know, I am one of the biggest fans of the Matrix trilogy ever. Like, that was my awakening to what great movies are, or all that movies can be. I've always loved, films and watching TV and series since I was a kid, but The Matrix just changed everything for me. So, in case our audience doesn't know, you were a stunt double for Trinity
yes. Oh my
on
gosh.
the Matrix sequels. So I'll just start off by asking you, how did you get that gig? Also, what was the feeling like? Just give us an origin story of your time working on the Matrix.
Honestly, I mean, that was one of the greatest moments of my life. So when the first Matrix came out, I was not yet involved at all in stunts. And I remember sitting in the theater and watching Trinity on the screen and thinking, yes,
Yeah.
that is what I want to do.
Wow.
Like, I was so inspired by Carrie Ann and her character, the whole thing. I was just so inspired. And I thought, yeah, right. That's what I want to do. I'm physical. I could do physical things and an actress, but like these badass female characters, it really made such a huge impression on me. Having no idea, that a couple of years later, I would actually start doing stunts. And I was working on another movie with Chad Stahelski at the time, who said, hey, we're going to be holding auditions for the Matrix sequels for the Trinity stunt double, and I think you should come and audition. And I was over the moon just by the thought of that, just to have that opportunity, because I was very young in the business, and I knew that I would be up against some veteran stunt girls. And I think it was, having my dance background was definitely an asset because of the way that they work with wires and all of that. I kind of took to wire work pretty naturally. And basically there was an audition in like a big airport hangar, and we all went in there, and I don't know, God was smiling on me that day. I ended up getting the job, and I could not believe it. When I got the phone call telling me that I got that job, I'm sure I screamed. I probably threw some cartwheels, and yeah, and it ended up being just an incredible experience. Again, I was at the early stage of my career, so to be working at that level with the Wachowskis and with that cast, and coming off of the first one that was just,
juggernaut.
It just changed everything for action filmmaking. It was very, very special, and I was sort of wide-eyed and taking it all in. And at the end of the day, Carrie Ann really did so much of it. The Wachowskis were very adamant about having the actors do as much as they could. And so a lot of my job was training with her, training with the team, and setting things up and allowing her to do as much as she could. And then, of course, there were places where I stepped in where it got a little bit hairy. And, you know, when you get thrown through the wall and things like that and drop to your back from the ground or any of those kinds of things. And then I also had the great privilege of working with Debbie Evans and getting to watch her because she did all of the car and motorcycle work. And she is one of the most talented, phenomenal stunt women and absolutely loving human beings that I've ever met. So yeah, it was pretty freaking great.
I can imagine.
I was going to ask, there's a shot of Trinity on a Ducati.
Yeah, that's Debbie, or if it's not Carrie Ann, it's Debbie, and Carrie Ann was on quite a lot of those shots. But when it came to the real stunt work there, that's all Debbie Evans.
Sweet.
I did this sequence where she's on the bridge and jumps over the bridge onto the motorcycle carrier and then gets on the bike.
Ooh, really? Oh my God.
That part,
iconic.
that was the only little part for me in that particular sequence, and the rest.
That's the part you want.
That's iconic, and your whole dance thing came into play, obviously, with your hands and look, really graceful and badass and kicking ass. That's incredible because, in the Matrix trilogy, I mean, the first Matrix had a lot of action, but the second one, they turned the volume up to like 13. So that was a really like intense, huge production, and I'm excited to be talking to you about it. So how was the experience just being on set with those people? That level of craftsmanship, I mean, that's like at the top of the food chain, basically. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I was just wide-eyed and pinching myself through most of the process and trying to just soak in as much knowledge as I could and learn from these incredible people. And it was just great. It was my first time on a pretty good run. We got to go to Sydney, Australia, which was really amazing, and being on location and just being part of something that iconic and such a large scale. At that time, I think it was one of the biggest budgets ever that they did the two movies combined. And I think the budget was somewhere around like $400 million for the two of them combined. So, I part of me was like, what am I doing here? But I'm so glad I'm here. So I just learned a lot. It was a really fantastic learning experience. And I just absolutely loved and adored everybody that worked on that. The whole cast was great. And I really loved the Wachowskis. I loved working with them. They had such a strong vision. And I had not, I had worked on a few things prior to that. And enough to know that that kind of director is very rare, that is so specific about their vision and communicates it very clearly. They knew exactly what they wanted and they communicated it very clearly. And as a performer, whether it be stunts or acting, that is what I want. When I'm working with directors that are telling you to go again because they're not getting what they want, they don't know why they're not getting what they want, and they're not communicating exactly what it is they're looking for, and you're trying to just guess. I love that about the Wachowskis, and that's also something that Zack Snyder has in the bag as well. One of my favorite things about him.
Right.
So.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll talk more about him. I have a follow-up question. So they are shooting a new Matrix film, and I think Warner's is also working on another sort of offshoot in that universe. What's
Are we gonna get an exclusive? Are we gonna get an exclusive?
No.
There's no exclusive. I'm not involved.
What do you think about it? Are you excited? Do you think they should have just left it with the trilogy and let it be immortalized like it was, or do you think that they should expand and explore the universe a la Star Wars and those kind of franchises?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It's a slippery slope, right? It could turn out to be brilliant. Of course I want more of it. I'm a fan of the Matrix as well. So there's a part of me that just wants more. You know, I want to see those characters again. I don't want to sacrifice any of my love for them. So I have no idea. I mean, I have to have faith in the filmmakers that they're going to do something great. I don't know. I don't know anything about the new script or even really who's involved because, like I said, I'm not as much in the stunt world these days. So it's just not something that I have ties to. Mm-hmm. I'm with everyone else out there anticipating what's coming, and I'll be excited to. I mean, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be sitting there watching it.
Yep. Chris, what do you think? I haven't heard your.
My opinion is pretty much like other big IPs. It depends where it's coming from. If it's coming from a place of love and there's a clear vision and it's not just a money grab, then, you know, if there's a story to tell, I want to hear it. If it's more along the lines of we've got this IP and we need to make some money and we know people will come and see it, that instinctively turns me away from it. I don't get the feeling that the Wachowskis are that kind of people. So hopefully it's good, but again, you can never tell with these things.
And I believe there's only Lana that's involved in this one, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not sure, right? So I don't know what's happening. Yeah. I'm interested.
I mean, for me, I've always, the Wachowskis, they always created the Matrix as an expansive universe, as a world with a lot of backstories, and there's side characters, and there's so much going on in that universe. And I feel like if Star Wars can have 9 movies and 1,000 video games and 5 million books, then why not the Matrix? It's my favorite franchise. I think it has a lot of relevance, even more so today, with how tapped in we are and how dependent we are on technology and virtual worlds and all that kind of stuff. So I feel that it should be explored. More stories should be told. Now, the movie may come out, it might not be great, but I think that they should keep trying. The more stories we get, the better. No matter what happens, it's not going to ruin the Matrix trilogy for me. That's always going to be there, no matter what. I don't care if you make like the worst movies ever or whatever. That's always going to be there. So that's my take on it.
Danielle, you mentioned that you're not so much in the stunt area now. I suppose that's because you're concentrating more on acting and filmmaking yourself. So why don't we transition into your acting career? Backlash was the first time you were the lead in a feature-length film. Did you feel any pressure with this added responsibility?
I do think there is a higher level of responsibility when you're the lead character. Yeah, that's definitely falling on your shoulders. And in that particular project, I didn't think that I brought my best forward at all. And so it's tough. You know, I think it's easier if I'm a smaller character. Maybe I didn't feel like I did a great job.
It's a learning experience, isn't it? Because it was the first time. It wasn't like this your 20th film as a lead. I mean, we all begin somewhere, and I've seen the film and I quite enjoyed it. I had no problem with the film because it's as I expected it to be. It's more made for television. It's light-hearted. It's a classic late 90s, early 2000s action flick made for TV. I had a lot of fun with it, and I thought you were really good.
Thank you. I think expectations is the big word, right? Because I came onto that particular project after a great meeting I had with the director, and we were really on the same page about some things. And for me, that particular experience ended up being a bit disappointing. Like, you know, we were met with certain challenges filming because we were very low budget. We were shooting off in like Trinidad, which was difficult set of circumstances. But at the end of the day, I was putting my faith in the director, and he was meant to edit the film and sort of have creative control over the way that it played out in the end. And that did not happen. Towards the end, when they got into post, it didn't work out for the director to see the film through and for him to get his final edit as he and I both hoped. huge learning experience for me. Also, I know that there are particular takes in that where they did not use what I would consider to be the best takes. And so I think when we were filming, I feel like we would do a take or two at almost like a warm up, because sometimes we would show up to shoot one scene. We wouldn't have the permit in place, so we'd have to shoot a different scene. And it's almost like you're finding your footing as you go, kind of warming up to getting into it, and then finally delivering the good performance. And then in the final edit, that's not the performance that they use. So huge learning experience for me to really be so prepared and so focused and bring it on every take, because you don't know what they're going to use. And in the end, I personally was disappointed on a lot of levels for myself.
All part of the experience.
Yeah.
You mentioned that it was in Trinidad.
Yeah.
So, Lupe, I think you wanted to ask
I have a serious question. So, what's your perfect fantasy of a getaway holiday? Like, what's the perfect getaway holiday for Danielle Burgio?
That is very serious. Let's take that very seriously. My perfect holiday is a little bit of adventure and a little bit of relaxation. Probably more adventure than relaxation. The best trip I ever took in my life was a couple of years ago when I went to Africa, and I did some safari, but also I trekked with gorillas.
Wow.
And that was phenomenal. And there were, a few days that were like relaxed, where you would just kind of like chill and unwind. But for me, it's more about experiencing different culture. And in that particular instance, it was perfect for me because I have such a love and connection with animals. So to be around animals at that level all day, every day was pretty much the money for me.
Well, you mentioned adventure and relaxation. It sounds like you're describing the plot of Backlash.
Exactly.
That was pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
Perfect holiday.
Although it's not that kind of action that I want on vacation. Like, I think, a lot of people think, oh, well, she's so physical and a stunt woman, so she probably wants to go and do some black diamond runs down the slope. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, no, I had all that physical action and taking risks and doing all that at work for so long. I'm actually happy with a hot toddy in front of the fire. So, but I do like experiencing culture, and I do like I like travel. Like I love going to different countries and vistas and exploring. So whatever that means, whether it's just out for a drive, like last year I was in Tasmania. And I had the best time just being in the car, listening to this great radio station that I found, and just cruising along these giant sweeping cliffs, and huge smile on my face, absolute heaven.
Does that inspire the story behind Girl Trip?
Yeah. Well, Girl Trip's funny. So the first short film that I did was Lucy Falls. And that's a drama about a woman in a domestic abuse situation. So after I did Lucy, I thought, okay, right, I want to do it again. I want to take what I learned and I want to make another movie. And I thought, what is the last thing anybody would expect from me? Because everybody's expecting action. And Lucy Falls had a little bit of action in it, but it was more of a drama. So I was like, right, comedy. That's the last thing anybody expects from me. So I took that on as a challenge. And then I thought, okay, well, what the hell am I going to write about? And then they say, well, write what you know. And I thought, well, what is funny to me? What is funny in my life? And I actually have my two best girlfriends who we would oftentimes go out to the desert. In fact, my one bestie, her name is Heath. She used to live out there in Joshua Tree. And so I thought, great, well, we can just shoot out there because she's living out there, and let's kind of base it around us. So those characters are based on my two best friends and myself, but obviously exaggerated versions. And we kind of I just came up with this really wacky story, but a lot of it, a lot of it was based in truth.
Let me just interject and say I absolutely love Girl Trip. Like,
thank you.
I can't.
Me too.
give it a better like glowing review than it's hilarious. You really brought a very unique voice to it. It feels fresh. It has a very retro feel to it, but it feels very now at the same time. Does that make sense?
Thank
I
you.
thought
I'm
some,
so flattered.
no, I thought some of the shooting techniques that you use and some of the editing felt quite 90s, but like, updated at the same time. And then obviously you have this, short film that's about girls and they're just like free and doing their own thing, and it's amazing and it's funny. It's actually
Thank
like
you.
it's hilarious.
It
Like,
is.
Thank you. Well, I have to give a shout out to Jameson Tabb. So Jameson, I met just before I did Lucy Falls, and he's an editor. He's a man of many talents. Editing is just one thing he does well. And he joined me in post on Lucy Falls. And then when I was doing Girl Trip, I said, "Look, I'm only going to do this if you'll come on board with me." And he said, how would you feel if we co-directed it together? And I was like, brilliant, because with Lucy Falls, I had actually not intended on directing it. I wrote it and was going to produce it. I wanted to play the role, but a friend of mine was going to direct it. And in the final hour, she said, "I'm not going to direct this. You are." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Why are you doing this to me?" And I was mad and I was crying. And she was like, "One day you're going to thank me for this." And she's right. She said, "You need to direct this. This is your vision, your story, your everything." So I ended up doing it, but taking that on was way too much. Like, it was just wearing way, way, way too many hats. Like, obviously Clint Eastwood can do it because, he's got experience and he's got money and a team behind him. I'm doing this on no money, no experience. I just went kamikaze, like balls to the wall. Let's do it. So when we cut to Girl Trip, and then Jameson said, "What would you think about me co-directing this?" I thought, yes, yes, yes. I need a partner in this. So, and he's brilliant. He's a wonderful editor. He's great with he can do visual effects things and all things post sound. He came from the sound world. So he brought all of that. And we did that together. And that was a great lesson too, in learning to collaborate. And it was a totally different experience. And I think like both films feel so different. And
Yes.
they're so different. And that was really the exercise for me. I took it on as an exercise, literally. Like, I didn't know if anybody would ever watch it. It's just like, hey.
I definitely recommend it.
I think the stars in it did an amazing job. Like Christine Adams, I recognize her like immediately. I was like, wait, I've seen her like on stuff before.
She's brilliant. She's on the CW's Black Lightning right now. She plays
yeah. She's been in a bunch of TV stuff. She's like a veteran actress. And like, I recognize her character because like my extended family who are like in the UK, they're into like their crystals and their strains of weed and their herbs and they're vegan. And, so it was interesting to see these archetypes because, I mean, you were like the athletic type and then you had a friend who was like more into her shell. And I just think you did such a good job. Are you going to direct a feature-length film based on the characters from Girl Trip? I want to know.
Well, somebody already did that. No, they stole our movie. No, they didn't. Girls Trip, the hit feature film was not really so much like Girl Trip, our short film, but I honestly have not considered that. But maybe I will. Maybe I will.
Why I'm telling like you have like for people who haven't seen this, like I recommend people a lot of things and definitely I'm putting my name behind this. Like you got to see it. If you don't like it, don't listen to anything I say ever again. That's how strongly I feel about it. It's really, 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 really good. Really
just
good.
Wear headphones on if you are sensitive to certain words.
Hey, wear headphones. Anyway, so one of the things I'm very proud of with both my films is the sound design, which I did not do personally, but I'm very proud of my sound team. And if you don't watch it with, in stereo or with headphones on, you actually miss a lot.
That's what I was talking about when I was talking about like the editing and the style, and like people have to see it. Like the part where you guys are fixing to climb up the rock, and then there's all those quick cuts and
Yeah.
the sound of the zippers and the straps, and brilliant.
Thank
I
you.
love really crafty stuff like that that's woven in with a good story, with good characters. Like all that comes together to make a great film, and you didn't lack off on anything. Everything just comes together to make like a brilliant film. And there's a twist at the end. I was like, how? Oh my! I saw that coming, but then I didn't see it coming. And then it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
So-
Shyamalan, like.
Thank you. Well, gosh, you just made my day. I am absolutely tickled. I'm so
No,
glad you liked it.
I absolutely
We had-
loved the film.
A blast making it, and if you can believe it, we shot that in 3 days.
What?
I know, it was insane. There was the third day we had something like 67 setups. It was ridiculous. It
Wow.
was hard. It was, I think, Jameson and I slept about 2 hours a night through that whole thing, and yeah, it was just crazy. It was fun. It was really fun. We had a good time.
Well, I want to see more, definitely, and I don't mind if it's an extended version or a sequel. I just want to see more of these characters.
Absolutely.
All three were brilliant, and I'd love to see more of them.
Okay,
Now,
I will take that. I will take that in.
now, one of the most important questions with regard to this film is, what does a testicle taste like?
Oh my! That had me rolling.
I'm not going to answer that. People listening are going to go,
I'm
what?
just
Now I
like,
really got to
what?
watch
Like,
that movie.
what did
What
it-
are they talking about?
You have to watch it to get the inside joke. But I have another fun question. So, do you prefer a quiet, relaxing night in or a crazy night out?
Honestly, I need one of each.
Okay.
I like balance. So, yeah, I love the crazy night out.
Mhm.
I'm super social, and I love, like, big parties, and I love social activities, and I like the energy of being around a lot of people, whether it's a concert or going out dancing. Like, I love that, but I can only do that if I can then have a night to just chill and relax. Because at the end of the day, believe it or not, I'm more of an introvert. Like, I'm one of those people that need to get quiet to recharge, and I'll get drained very easily. So yeah, both. I can't choose.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's interesting. Like, I found out recently that I am an introvert. Like, I'm very social. I get along with people just fine. I work at a front-facing job. I'm always talking to people. But I enjoy my quiet time. I need to recharge. I need to unwind. So I'm vibing with you on that. The extroverted introvert kind of thing. It's weird, but
Yeah.
it's a thing.
Somebody told me once that I'm an introvert who loves people. And I went, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's
like
it. That's a good way to describe it. Absolutely.
So we've talked about Girl Trip. Tell me a little bit about Lucy Falls, because that's actually the film that I first noticed you shared on Vero, and I watched it and I really, really enjoyed it, and that's why we kind of began our little communication. What was the inspiration behind this film? Because it deals with some really serious subject matter.
Yeah.
It's about a domestic abuse victim who has lost a child, and we kind of see a day in the life of Lucy.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration for this film, and why did this story feel so important to you to tell?
It's so interesting for me with writing. Writing is something I'm always drawn to, yet I'm terrified of it. And like, I have all these blocks, and I always feel like I can't write. And I think just I was open to the fact that I wanted to write something and I wanted to produce something, and I didn't know exactly what it was. I just knew I wanted to do it. And then it's almost like a bolt of lightning comes out of nowhere or I feel like it's not me, it's not even coming from me, all of a sudden this one little pop of inspiration, and then I latch onto it, and then this whole story just unfolds inside of me. And that's how it happened with Lucy. I was first drawn to the idea of a character who is perceived as weak, but yet she's not, and there is this stereotype of, especially women, and there are also men in an abusive relationships, but women in abusive relationships, and people, I think that they are victims, and that it's because they're weak, right? Or they just made that, whatever, they kind of had it coming in a way. And so I wanted to tell the story of this woman who, she just made a bad decision early on. And I think most people in their lives can see how one bad decision can sometimes lead you to a pretty suffering situation that you become trapped in. And it's not because she's weak. She's actually very strong. She just found herself here. So that was kind of the, like, just general loose inspiration. And then it kind of just took on a life of its own. Once I just opened up to the idea of that, it just started kind of flowing. And again, it feels like it comes from outside of myself. That's when I know I'm in the zone.
Yeah, and obviously, if anyone's listening to this podcast and has had an experience or has had these difficult kind of experiences in their life, reach out to the authorities. There's people, there's phone lines that you can reach out to and to get help for these serious things as well.
It's another reason that I wanted to tell this story, is because I do realize that there is so little awareness around this subject. This is something that affects like 50% of the population is either physically affected by it or knows somebody. And it's rampant. The statistics, you can look them up. I'm not going to misquote statistics, but they're astounding when you realize how big of a problem this is. And nobody's really talking about it. I find it interesting during the pandemic, you haven't heard a lot of talk about it, because I know for a fact that, people that are in these difficult abusive situations, especially during like this now in the pandemic, how bad that is. For the spouses, for the children, there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to manage their anger. They do need help. And so, for the people who are involved to be brave enough to reach out for help, but also, even more importantly, maybe the people around them, people that are friends, family, neighbors, whatever, that are seeing the signs and not be afraid to reach out, ask, see how you can be of service and help, because it is a huge problem in the world. I know in our country, in the US, it is. So any awareness that we can bring to it, I think is good.
100%. And thank you for that. You touched upon the inspiration coming from outside of your body, like an out of body experience, let's say. Creatively, what do you need to draw upon as a writer that's different from like the other areas of the business, like acting and stunts and things like that?
Yeah, I don't even know, man. I'm telling you, writing is just like so hard for me. I will find that I have to clean up everything around me. Like I have to organize every drawer and every closet. I have to pay every bill. I have to do everything before I can get into a mental space to start to write. And that's not always, that doesn't
not always
work so well in my life, because there's always more things piling up on the plate. So recently I've taken on a partner, and that's great because it demands accountability. And luckily for me, my partner is so brilliant, and he's great at like throwing the color on the page and getting us started. Once the color's on the page, it's easier for me to start moving things around and shifting, or and then having somebody to bounce ideas off of. When it's just me in my head, it's a little bit difficult. And this particular partner of mine, Andy, is teaching me so much. He's written so many scripts. So I'm learning a lot from him. He's inspiring me. He's encouraging me. And I've been getting stronger at it as time goes on. But I still feel, a little insecure sometimes, although I'm super proud of everything he and I have been working on. But
Fantastic.
Just be solo. I kept thinking like, during quarantine, maybe I'm going to write something on my own. And maybe like what, day 50 something. And that still hasn't happened. So I don't know.
We'll get there. We'll get there. So I have to, it's my job to keep us on track with the serious questions. So, next serious question is Batman or Superman? Are you a Batman girl or a Superman kind of girl?
Oh man, you keep asking me these. You keep asking me to choose things I don't want
There's
to
a
choose.
definite right answer. There's a definite right answer.
I've got your answer. Wonder Woman. How's that?
Oh,
Sneaky.
I love it.
Sneaky.
Nice.
Sneaky.
Nice. Okay, I see you, Danielle. That's a good one. I like
Okay.
it. I like it.
We have these fights all the time. I'm a Batman guy. And
I'm a Superman. I'm a Superman guy. Like the best, obviously the alpha of all superheroes, the one that started.
yeah, he lost in PBS though, so there's that.
But we've talked about how interesting it is that you created you made a film, in a dramatic film, quite a serious film, and then you flipped the script and you made a comedy. What is a genre that you haven't yet tackled, whether it is as an actress, as a stunt performer, as a filmmaker, that you would like to dabble into?
Well, I think one of the reasons I did the comedy was because I don't normally get hired or cast to work in comedies, and I really do love that. Like, it's so much fun to work on set when you're filming a comedy, and like the crew and everybody is just laughing all the time, having a great time. So that's part of the reason that I did Girl Trip, because that was one genre that I did not work a lot in. Obviously, I've worked a lot in action. And that's why I specifically did not produce an action short. Although now my trajectory is, as I said, I'm writing and producing, and they are all action based. So they're a little bit of everything. Like, one is horror, one is more just straight up like drama action. You know, there's something that's more comedy. It's pretty broad. I'm not particular to genres. I'm just particular to good storytelling. So that's really all I care about, is I want to be involved in stories that just speak to me, inspire me, or just resonate with me, either characters that resonate or stories that resonate. And ultimately, you know, once I hopefully get a couple things off the ground and prove myself as a filmmaker, and I really have the control to tell the kind of stories I want, then I really do want to tell stories that will impact people in a way that it makes them think, maybe to be a better person in the world, or to bring awareness to certain subjects. But for right now, for phase one, it's definitely just entertainment, general entertainment, good storytelling.
So what does entertain you? What are your favorite movies, just off the top of your head?
Well, this year, my favorite movie was Jojo Rabbit. I love Jojo Rabbit. It's wacky, and I love stories that are, for some reason, I love stories that are told through like a child's eyes. Like, I love Beasts of the Southern Wild was that way for me. Also, Sling Blade is another one of my favorite movies. I tend to be drawn to stories that are these two sort of misfit characters coming together. One of my favorite movies of all time is True Romance, right? These two misfit characters that come together and end up being like Bonnie and Clyde. It's so beautiful.
And the score of that film by Hans Zimmer is incredible.
Good. It's good stuff.
Brilliant film.
Yeah. So I don't normally lean towards horror. That is not normally my cup of tea.
Same.
But again, a good horror film. It's just a good movie, a good story. I'm in. I'll watch it.
Okay. I have another question, a serious question. So you have a podcast, and the podcast is called Women Kick Ass.
Yeah.
If you could interview one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Ooh. Lucille Ball.
Lucille Ball. And why?
I mean, she was one of the most inspiring women to me, and talk about a woman who kicked ass, because she, had this on-screen persona as being one thing, but yet behind the camera, she was so fierce. She was a fierce filmmaker and producer, and had such clarity about the content that she was bringing forward, right? Yeah, I don't know. I was a huge fan of hers growing up, and
over 120 acting credits.
Iconic.
Now that's a working woman.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we go on, would you please tell us a bit more about the podcast? How did you get into that? Would you tell our audience what the vision for the podcast is and give us a bit of info on it?
Yeah, so I got involved with Artemis Motion Picture Film Festival, and they're a brilliant group of people that honor and recognize strong women in film, and they have an annual film festival. And I met them and said, "Hey, I want to help you guys in any way I can. Like, what they're doing is amazing, and what can I do to be of service?" And the head of the organization, Melanie, she said, "Well, would you do a podcast for us?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." And that's how it started. And I thought, well, I have access obviously to a lot of stunt women, so we kind of started with that. And there seemed to be an interest in hearing, people like hearing about stunts. But then I really wanted to open it up. Like, there's just so many kick-ass women that are in the film industry. So the general concept is that I'm just talking to some of the most badass ladies in Hollywood and what they do. And so I've had some producers, some directors, second unit directors, stunt coordinators, actresses, stunt women. And just, it's really meant to be an inspiring platform to educate people as to what the different departments are, for whether it be people that want to get into the industry or people that are just sort of fascinated by movies and movie making. And, we've had some really great guests. Like I mentioned Jessie Graff earlier. She was one of our guests. She's one of the American Ninja Warriors, and she has worked, on the Wonder Womans and things like that. She's done quite a lot of big movies. Heidi Moneymaker, who is the Black Widow double for Scarlett Johansson, all the Avenger movies. We had Christine Adams came on and talked about her role in Black Lightning, and we've had some great, so that's what it is. And it's really fun. I only do it once a month, but it's just a very impromptu dialogue between me and some cool girls.
Yeah. Who was your favorite guest so far? Which podcast did you do that you had the most fun on, let's say?
I'll tell you just the first name that popped into my mind, because they're all just amazing ladies. But I got to interview a woman named Jeannie Epper, and Jeannie is a stunt woman who started, so many years ago. She was the Wonder Woman, the television Wonder Woman stunt partner.
Linda Carter's double, yeah.
Yeah, and to speak with her, what she did back then when women were not a big part at all of stunts, and for her to step into those kind of iconic shoes such a long time ago and sort of shape the way that strong women are portrayed on screen was a treat. And she's worked, that woman has got to have 200-300 credits of huge movie title after huge movie title. And she's, she talks a little bit about working with Jack Nicholson, and she's in the convertible car on the beach and gets to throw a slide and toss him into the water. So all these amazing stories, and how she got to kiss Paul Newman, and that was pretty great. That was a pretty good one for me.
It's an amazing podcast, and I'd really recommend people to check it out. One thing that I personally gained from listening to episodes is how diverse the backgrounds people come from to get into the film industry. I think a lot of us have this idea that there is just this one way to get into it, but it's pretty cool when you hear about people who come from take different routes basically to get to the same place. So I think that there's definitely something for everyone in it.
Thank you. And I think what I've learned from doing it is there is a through line with all of the interviews, and that is what attributes to their success. And what I've found that has been pretty consistent throughout is, the belief in self and having the courage to speak up for yourself and stand strong in your own talent and knowing what you're capable of, like that level of confidence that you have to bring, even if you're faking it until you make it. You know, because we do talk about, obviously it's a vigorous climb to the top in any of the professions, but it does seem pretty consistent throughout. It's interesting to hear what people will say about what qualities they felt like got them there, and that confidence and that strength is a huge part of it.
So before we move on, I have a serious question again. Would you rather be able to change the past or see into the future?
Oh, wow. That's a tricky one. Oh gosh, I was gonna say see into the future, but I don't know. I feel like that kind of takes the fun out of living. Like, I don't know that I'd want to see into the future. Yeah.
If she can see into the future, would she then be able to change her path, or is she set on a fixed predetermined destination?
She'll be able to. That's a good question. I
set the rules.
I'm not an expert in quantum physics and.
I don't know the past. Obviously, if I could go back now, there are things that I would change. But then I say, well, if I change them, would I be the person I am today? Probably not.
It's a paradox. It's a
paradox. Tricky. You and your tricky questions.
So speaking of the future, what do you have on the horizon coming up that people might be interested in?
Well, I am very excited for Army of the Dead to come out.
Yeah.
What's that about? I've not heard about that one.
It's just another little zombie movie. Yeah, I mean, honestly, getting to work with Zack Snyder has been a dream of mine for many, many years. So I got to shoot last summer, and I'm extremely excited about it. Obviously, I'm just excited to see it, you know. And then I made so many amazing friends along the way that I'm just excited to see it all come together. And
what were your general?
No, I am not allowed to say.
All right, you can tell us what your general
right here.
What about your general experiences then, without going into any spoiler territory or breaking any NDAs? Like, what was your general non-film experience like working on the set?
Just pure joy. I mean, like, the group of people were spectacular. You know, all of the actors are lovely. I was so happy to get to know them, but you know, really, the filmmakers, and working with Zack and getting that kind of experience, because working with him was really not like any other experience I've ever had on set.
In what way?
He's just so hands-on, which is great, and he communicates his vision so clearly. Again, like, he knows exactly what he's looking for, and he communicates that, and with such a sense of, you know, excitement. Again, like, you just want to kind of get wrapped up in the excitement.
Yeah.
And that energy really comes through. So I always say that the energy of a film all trickles down from the director.
How does he compare to other directors that you've worked with in the past? Like, in terms of his, you know, his modus operandi, how hands-on he is, or what he's like with actors or with stunts.
Yeah, he's way more hands-on than I have ever experienced. Like, you know, he'll get in there and like kind of show you, I want you, you know, he'll like act it out, like, especially with the stunt stuff. Like, he's great. He's physical. He'll get in there and show you like this and that and like this. This is how it goes. So yeah, and then you're all like pumped up. Yeah, okay, I want to do it. And you're seeing exactly what he's seeing in his mind. So you're like, right, I got it. And then if he needs to make any adjustments, you know, he'll come in and say, okay, he'll just give you a, you know, whether it's an emotional adjustment or a physical adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
There's just an energy to him that is just infectious to be around him, because it's just good. It just feels like good energy. And like, the people that he works with are people that he's, you know, come up with over the years. They're all a team, and so it feels like family. Mm-hmm. More than any other set I've ever worked on. It just feels like family, because these filmmakers have all really worked together for a long time together, and even other people maybe that are coming in a little newer, they just kind of fit right into that energy. It's just very so positive, and there's just this kind of happy feeling, even when things get stressful, which they do sometimes on set. There's no major blow-ups. You deal with it. They put out the fires where they got to put out the fires, and then they roll with it. And at the end of the day, it's it's all hugs. Back then, when we were allowed to hug, I don't know if we're allowed to hug anymore. But
what kinds of things did you pick up from him that you'd implement in your own directing in the future?
Well, I think that his prep work, is so extensive that he really has done all of his homework ahead of time. He sees the entire movie in his head. He's so clear on what he wants and what he's going for. He's done all that work ahead of time. So obviously, you do need to kind of bend and shift when things come up in the moment.
Yeah.
But it's just set. It's just done. And then he just brings this very easy energy to the set. He makes everybody feel at home and at ease. There were moments where we were shooting and he'd go, sit down with a couple of the, background performers and, really include them and make them feel important, because they are, right? Yeah. Everybody is important to the filmmaking process. And he's so great at treating everybody equally and having it feel like a very, we're all in this together and you're a part of it and I'm a part of it. And there's just there was no ego, the way that he would speak to everybody on the same level and kind of crack jokes and sing songs and, just bring this light energy. And that's such a beautiful way to work. Because at the end of the day, come on, we're not curing Corona. We're making a fun movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zack Snyder is my favorite directors. I know all his movies inside out. What are your favorite Zack movies? Have you seen all or most of his movies? And what do you think of the movies he makes in his career so far, even before?
I mean, he's brilliant. I love, he's just so visual. His movies are so visually pleasing and also have the story element as well, like I love Man of Steel, the emotional arc of Superman, right? It's deep and beautiful.
Yeah.
Obviously 300 really sticks out because that was the one that really just was like, whoa, visually is just so cool. And yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm just a fan of all of it. Yeah. I'm such a fan of all of it.
If you haven't seen Sucker Punch, you need to see it. And don't listen to any of the reviews because they didn't understand the movie. Sucker Punch is a great movie. And I feel like as a person who has a background in stunts, you'll really appreciate the action in it. But it also has a story about female empowerment. And he said it's about how women are treated in Hollywood.
Yes. And I know I've heard some people sort of like misrepresent that, or like, I don't know how they got something else out of that, but absolutely that's what it is.
It is.
And it's beautiful. Again, visually stunning, and then just great story. And again, you mentioned music earlier, Chris, like his use of music in his work is so great.
Always top notch.
That one sequence. Yeah.
Emotive. Always emotive.
One last. So, Army of the Dead is my most anticipated movie of 2020. I hope it's still coming out. I'm not going to ask you whether it is or not because
I don't know.
Because even if you knew and you're going to say, "Oh, it's not," I don't want to hear it. I want to live in bliss until.
Yeah. No, I don't. I know as much as everybody else out there. I really don't. I don't know what's happening. But I am so looking forward to it.
All right.
It's going to be really great. That I can tell you.
Yeah.
That I feel confident.
That's what I wanted to hear about. Like, as someone who's anticipating it, and I've seen Zack's other movie. This is different, right? I mean, I remember Dawn of the Dead. That one, I mean, it does have action in it, but it's more of a horror movie. Although it does have action in it. Then we have 300. We know what that is. like a historic epic. Then, we have superhero over, we have Sucker Punch, but this one feels a little bit different.
Well, this one is so special because if you think about, from Dawn of the Dead, the evolution of Zack Snyder,
Yeah.
we've all grown and aged and expanded and learned, and he's had all this experience working on these huge studio pictures, and so now to be given the opportunity to really have the kind of creative control he had on Army is
Wow.
I'm so excited to see it come together because
Woo.
as I'm sure it's not a secret, and I'm sure you guys know, he was running camera, and
Yeah.
I think he wrote it. Like, I mean, he was just involved in every aspect and have that kind of control that I think every director would like to have. And he's earned his way there. And now he's been given it with this, beautiful opportunity. Thank you, Netflix.
Exactly.
And yeah, so I think it's going to be tremendous.
Yeah, he mentioned when he announced the film that the handcuffs are off on this. And that really excites me.
Specifically, yeah. Same. So, I mean, you've worked with other directors. You yourself, you're a director. You've had, your cinematographer. You've had, your cameraman. So, what was it like seeing a director like Zack, massive director, and he's the DOP on his own movie, and it's not like it's a small sort of, quiet drama. Like, what was that like to see? And I don't know. That must be mind blowing to experience.
It's bananas. It's bananas. Yeah, no, but it's so cool. I mean, it makes sense again because, like I said, he sees the movie. So, like, you might as well put the camera in his hand.
True.
Because he's already seeing it in his mind's eye. So rather than having to communicate it to somebody else, although, he works beautifully with, his DPs like Larry Fong and all the other ones that he's worked with. I mean, they're all phenomenal. But exciting to see him, like, pick up the camera and run around with it. And it was so cool. I'm so excited to see it.
So while we're still on the topic of Zack Snyder, why don't you give us the 4 most important words in Hollywood right now?
Oh, well, that's an easy one. Release the Snyder Cut.
Yes, it's coming. So how did your time working on The Walking Dead, the torn apart webisodes, help you in preparation for your role on Zack's film? And I may or may not be trying to get a reveal of what kind of role you have here.
Yeah, I'm not going to fall for that one. Well, on Torn Apart, The Walking Dead, that was a webisode that bridged, it was actually the first webisodes, and it was the ones that bridged season 1 to season 2, and that was so much fun. And I did play a zombie on that. Was awesome. Like the incredible prosthetics of KNB, Greg Nicotero's team. And Greg Nicotero actually directed that episode, and he and I had worked together several times in the past. So he had brought me on for that, which was a massive compliment, and I'm so excited to see his success with that franchise.
I'm a big Walking Dead fan, and I watch all the Talking Dead, the after show and all of that. I absolutely love it. And
it's so great to be a part of that because those fans, they're like Zack fans. The Walking Dead fans and Zack fans, I'd say, are like the biggest, like, most amazing group of people. And so to be a part of that was very, very cool because I did get a lot of interaction with the fans, and I loved that. Like, I love hearing from them. And then just to get, decked out in all that, like, dead drapey skin.
Yeah. If anyone hasn't seen it, if anyone hasn't seen the makeup that you're in that episode, Jesus, is scary. Like, you've got no lips, no nothing, just teeth blaring out, and then there's a specific action scene where you, let's just say as it is, you take an axe to the head.
I certainly do. I start off as the lovely stepmother and then end up as a, drooling zombie with an axe to the head. So there you go. That's Walking Dead. But yeah, it was a great fun. It's always fun to get to play zombies and these crazy characters. I've gotten to be vampires and ghosts and all kinds of weird alien things, but zombies are always fun. I don't know. There's people love zombies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
It's
one
a
last
lot of-
Army of the Dead question. One last Army. And
Okay.
it's that is there a storyline in which you guys try to get tissue paper and hand sanitizer? Because
Yes, you got me on that one. Spoiler alert.
Well, because
Who knew?
I never saw
who
that.
knew that was going to be a thing? It's so bizarre.
Who knew?
I mean, we couldn't possibly be using more toilet paper now than we were 2 months ago.
Like, were people not wiping their backsides before? Like, what's wrong with people? Wash yourself.
Exactly.
So Danielle, it's been an amazing interview. It's been wonderful getting to know you. This felt more like a discussion, like a meet cute, rather than like an official interview. We have one last question for you, and this is a question we ask all our guests. We have this thing that we call exiled for a reason. Now, the reason why we call ourselves film exiles is because we can have some pretty hot film takes. We're not afraid to be unpopular. We don't care about, films that have like the best reviews or the worst reviews. We just love what we love. And we've been banished to the wastelands of the cinematic landscape because of that. So we're going to ask you, what is your most daring, boldest, hottest film take? What's the film take that's going to get you exiled from film Twitter? For example, for me, I say that Batman v Superman is a masterpiece.
Okay,
Chris.
that's a hot take in most people's circles, but not in our circles. But for me, for example, I think that Crash, that won Best Picture over Capote, Brokeback Mountain, Munich, is very maligned. But for me, I feel that he actually deserved that Best Picture winner back then. I also think Batman Begins is a better movie than The Dark Knight, for example.
So I feel like I always have too much to say on everything, and now you've really stumped me. I have nothing to say.
What would you be embarrassed to admit? A
That
film
I
that you like that you would be embarrassed to admit.
I don't know. Well, I have no idea. I don't know if this qualifies. I just watched Big Trouble in Little China the other night, which for me is just one of my favorite films of all time. And it's maybe now in this day looking back, it's kind of a goofy thing, but I don't know. I still think there's a lot of people out there that love that movie.
I love it.
I mean, I grew up on Clash of the Titans. That was something we watched every year.
You know what? Danielle, I told you, me and you, we're buddies.
Is that it? Okay.
When I was a kid, so like my dad is he's a very unique individual, let's put it that way, and I love him to death. And looking back on my childhood, I really thank him. So when I was a kid, obviously as a kid, you want to watch all the Disney movies and the cartoons that everyone is watching at school, and even when you go to your friend's house, you get to watch that. And we tell our dad, "Oh, Dad, we want to watch Aladdin. We want to watch Beauty and the Beast." And you know what he'd do? He'd put in Clash of the Titans.
We watched it every year like clockwork, and we would just love it. I don't mean just go back and watch it now, and it's atrocious. But
but that's what I grew up on, and it informed a lot of my film tastes. So yeah,
there you go. That is it. Official.
Nostalgia.
I think we can induct you into the Film Exile Hall of Fame. I think you made it with that one. That's a good one.
Okay, good.
So before we leave, what's on the horizon for you? Is there anything? I mean, apart from Army of the Dead, is there anything that you want us to look forward to? Even if it's a podcast episode that you have scheduled, or if it's a project you're working on, or anything you'd like to draw attention to, we'd like to spotlight that.
Thank you. No, I mean, Army is definitely the big ticket item. And then the Women Kick Ass podcast releases on the 15th of every month. So I'd love for people to tune in and have a listen. And yeah, everything else I'm doing is very behind the scenes at the moment. So I never like to talk about anything until it's actually happening. But there's all kinds of good things brewing. And I think in the time to come, you'll be seeing me a little bit more as a filmmaker. But also those projects will have me on screen. Not on all of them, but on some of them. So I'm really looking forward to the new venture of doing more of the writing and producing. But I always love acting, so I hope there's going to be lots more of that.
We hope so.
We have a lot of anticipation for what's coming ahead. This has been an incredible interview, Danielle. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really great experience for us as well, and we really hope to have you on in the future. And you can maybe talk more openly about Army and all your other exciting projects coming up ahead. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you on social media, or if you've got a website, or absolutely anything that you want to talk about before we close out?
Thank you. Well, I am on Vero, as you mentioned, and I think my handle on there is Danny1111, and I spelled Danny, D-A-N-I. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. Both of those are Danny Burgio 1111. And then I have my website is danielleburgio.com. It's all pretty easy. But what you might not know is I'll throw in a little extra thing on the side. I actually make jewelry. So I have it's soulshine.la, and that's just a little creative thing I like to do on the side. So I've got that. I'm on Instagram with that as well.
Excellent.
Just want to give a shout out to my 8-month-old puppy who has been sitting here so quiet the whole time. Good girl, Ripley. Good girl.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
And what else? That's it. You guys are so awesome. I've had so much fun. This has been a total hoot for me to be on the other side of the podcast. So really, really fun. Thank you. And I would love to come back on after Army comes out. I think that would be good. Then we can really talk about some stuff.
That's lovely to hear. Lupe, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
Well, I have been yours truly, Lupe. You can find me on Twitter at LiveLoveLupe. You can find me also on Vero, also at LiveLoveLupe. Once again, got to say thank you, Danielle. I'm a huge fan of yours. I consider you a superstar and now a friend as well. And I look forward to, talking and conversing.
Great stuff. And I've been Chris, and you can find me across all social media at Vinaldo7. Obviously, we'd love to hear your feedback on this great interview with Danielle. Leave your messages in the comments below. If you like the video, hit like. Please subscribe to our channel if you enjoy our content, and hit us up on Twitter at The Film Exiles. We'd love to talk about all kinds of films. Thank you for joining us in the spotlight, and until next time, stay exiled.